Delighted to welcome our first guest of this hour, former Conservative Party leader, Sir Iain Duncan Smith. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning. The battles today seem to have moved on from how long people should be thrown in jail if they lie about going on holiday to Portugal to whether or not anyone is going on holiday ever again, whether it's abroad or even at home. As we've just been hearing, different ministers at senior level giving different advice on whether or not people should book a holiday or not. Wasn't the whole point of cancelling Christmas that we didn't have a lockdown in January? And the whole point of the lockdown in January was that we could get back to life as normal. 3 weeks to flatten the curve seems to be taking a very long time to actually finish.
Yes, I think the government could do without the contradictions that were up yesterday. I saw and spoke to Matt Hancock yesterday evening, and I'm rather with him in this regard. I think that it's important to warn people that we have to get the vaccinations done and we have to make sure that everything is right before they start opening up. That's fine. People are sensible enough to understand that. I think the better message here would be, look, it's up to you, but there will be risks about booking holidays because you may find that insurance companies won't pay back if government then says we're still not able to go abroad or even to travel. So the risk is people's risk, but it's up to them. But other than that, they can. It's up to them. Leave it to people to decide whether they want to take that risk about booking holidays. And Hancock said he was planning to go to Cornwall. Well, he may not get there, but he's planning to. So I think most of the British public can be trusted to make their own judgment.
Might put a lot of us off going to Cornwall. This is interesting. As Jonathan Ashworth just said there, this has got to be the last lockdown. We've heard that 3 times now. This has got to be the last lockdown. Each time is the last one. A lot of people who were like me, very sceptical about about lockdowns, bought into this. I think they were wrong. I think I'm going to be proved right on this. That actually, well, fair enough. The vaccine is the game changer, and the vaccine is the route out. Now, I think the vaccine is a game changer in terms of tackling this virus, and I'm delighted my elderly relatives in their 70s have now had the vaccine first dose. Delighted, can't wait for them to get the second. But the thing is, despite the rollout of the vaccine, and despite all the good news in terms of case rates and things like that, doesn't seem to be pushing either NervTag or Sage or Patrick Vallance or Chris Whitty or the Prime Minister or Matt Hancock or any of the people involved into actually releasing us from these lockdown rules. We're not going to find out for another 11 days what the exit strategy will be. I don't think the government's got one right now. And the first thing that's going to change is in about a month's time on March the 8th when some kids go back to school. Shouldn't we be dealing with this sooner rather than later?
Yes, I think so. I think the government's now got to really start setting out the plan for how we get out of this terrible, terrible lockdown. Because the reality for most people, most businesses, if you look at businesses now, let's say the hospitality sector, it's quite clear that if they are to open, they will have a number of weeks lead time because, beer isn't being produced at the moment. They've got to get that done, food, etc. All that has to be planned, has to be produced, has to be delivered. So there is a huge lead time to quite a lot of businesses being able to open up at all. So they need a lot of long-term warning about this. The second thing is I absolutely believe that the vaccines are the complete game changer. There's been a lot of bits and pieces about does the AstraZeneca one help against the South African variant. As you said earlier on, all viruses mutate. More often than not, they don't mutate in a dangerous way. They mutate in a less dangerous way. I've not actually heard of a mutation that goes in the other direction. What can happen, which has happened with the previous mutations from Kent, is that they may be more infectious, but the mortality rates remain the same. And that's the problem with the infection rate. So the key thing here is it's now clear that the vaccines, all the vaccines, are very good about stopping transmission. Yeah. They're very, very high level of blocking transmission. So that's going to be
that was something that wasn't being tested during the trial. So that was just something they were hoping would happen.
That's exactly right. So here's the key. We now know that. We have enough information to say, all right, if nothing changes, then this is where we should be. This is where we're looking to be. And this is how we will do it. So the plan has to be out there. I think the government's worried that the moment they start talking about unlocking, then people start taking it into their own hands and do what they like. Actually, the truth is, throughout this lockdown, this is more people. There have been more people in their cars, more people on the streets, more people out. than they were in the
But
first
that's
lockdown.
because they're allowed to be. People point fingers. I'm always amazed at the number of people who say, oh, it's outrageous. All these people are breaking the rules. No, I mean, if you see me in a car or you see me on the tube, it's because I'm legally allowed to, because I have to come into work, as do many other people. It's amazing the number of people pointing fingers who are quite happy to be ordering something on Amazon, ordering a delivery, but seem to be very cross at the people going into the restaurants to actually make the food they're getting delivered, or to go into the factories to make the goods and distribute the goods that they're ordering on Amazon. There's an awful lot of people who are very happy to sit in their own homes, wag their fingers, point their fingers at other people who are basically providing them with the services to enable them to do that.
Yes, and I think this is the problem, really. It's led to a kind of net curtain twitching mentality, which is, I'm going to spy on people. And I think we've got to be very careful. When we start down that road, it may never stop. And one of the big problems we've got, for example, is on this 10-year prison sentence. If somebody apparently comes in and doesn't say exactly where they are, with this sort of stuff has to come in front of the House of Commons, but there's no plan for it to do so.
But this 10-year prison sentence, it's a government has said basically they don't even need to have a vote in Parliament. We are now living in a country where the government can summarily introduce, for the sake of a front page headline in the papers, a 10-year prison sentence for someone lying to people. Don't want people to lie. They shouldn't be doing that. Absolutely, it's a serious offence. But a 10-year jail sentence, more than you get for some armed weapons offences, for child sexual abuse. I mean, extraordinary, huge sentence. And they don't even have to get that approved by Parliament. I find that quite terrifying.
Well, that's because they've used a law, which is the forgery law. And the honest truth is there is a great disquiet in Parliament about this not coming back to Parliament to be properly debated. It's not that Parliament immediately will say no, they may say no, but the key thing is Parliament is there to tease out the problems of any policy at all. And one of the questions I have is what happens if somebody has been out of South Africa for a week, and it was French, went to France and then had to come across on business to the UK, sort of didn't realise that the rules were there. They are. What are we going to do? We're going to lock them up for 10 years, or is it 1 year?
Yeah.
And what happens about how that works? Because the prisons are overcrowded at the moment, so we now start locking up everybody. And then yesterday we heard the Transport Secretary say, "Well, no one's actually going to be locked up under this law." And so, if it was a deterrent, it's not a deterrent.
Yeah, exactly.
So the key thing is it's a bit confusing, and I would therefore say that's what Parliament exists for. Bring it to Parliament. Let us ask the questions. If they can't answer them, don't do it.
Absolutely. Just finally, very briefly, if you would, I just want to ask you about this. There was a case yesterday where two children, primary school age children, playing together in a playground, were sent home by officials saying that they were breaching, COVID laws, even though, of course, they were totally entitled to be in the playground and totally entitled to be together. Indeed, if they weren't even brother and sister, they'd still been entitled to play together. The government, Press Association asked the government for a statement. A Cabinet Office spokesman used these words: 21st century democracy Britain. They use these words: playgrounds are primarily for use by children who do not have access to private outdoor space. And while parents, guardians or carers are allowed to take children to a playground for exercise, they must not socialise with other people while there. Is psychopathic too strong a word to describe that statement?
No, but what it does describe is that what happens to people when they are given almost unlimited power is that they start thinking. Their mentality goes in the same direction, which is what I say is right, therefore it must be obeyed. And nobody thinks for a second, does this meet the normal standards of what people might do? And the answer is, I generally would be concerned about that because it's mad. We already know that children themselves, don't get it, and are very, very young children, a very, very low likelihood of transmitting it to anybody. That's all absolutely clear. What's going on at the moment is, everybody, I think, is very worried that they'll end up having to re-lock down because they opened up too soon. And this is percolating through government, through the advisors, through the scientists. They don't want to be the one that says, yes, you can do this, and then found out wrong. And that's the wrong way to go. I'm a great believer that the principle in the UK, particularly English law, has been common law. And common law always says it's not illegal unless we say it's illegal, otherwise it's legal, which is quite different from European law. Yeah. So in other words, get on with your lives, make your decisions, be sensible, and if it becomes too dangerous, then we may step in. But in the meantime, you can make those decisions.
Life has absolutely changed, has it not? I hope not for good. Sir Iain Duncan Smith, so appreciate you joining us, former Conservative Party leader.